Speaker will share his, or actually it's her, experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. We ask, out of respect for our speaker, to please remain seated until she has finished. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Charlotte.
Hi, everybody. I'm Charlotte, and I'm an alcoholic. And you are a scary group tonight. Yeah, because it's Halloween. Happy Halloween. And thank you, Linda, for asking me to do this. We were trying to figure out exactly when that happened because we were in a restaurant, a real one, with no masks. So it must have been February or early March. Yeah, I remember now. But I didn't remember until you called me recently to remind me that I had said I would do this. And I'm always glad to give an open talk because I'm always curious about what I will say. It's interesting that, sobriety brings about a certain amount of truth and honesty. And I remember when I was drinking and using, that was one of the major difficulties, was trying to remember who I told what when, or how much, or, what the nature of the story was. And when I got sober, I remember thinking, wow, this is easy. It's really simple when you tell the truth to everybody, that you don't have to keep track anymore. Not that I, wrote it down or got real formal about it, but I still was always making it up as I went along. There's so many ways to organize an open talk, what it was like, what happened, what it's like today. And I decided I would do the experience, strength, and hope as we read in the preamble, because I think that that's a very organized way, and it kind of just, paints a picture from beginning to end. My sobriety date, by the way, is July 9th, 1989, so I've been sober. Thank you. So I've been sober over a little over 31 years, and I do not know where that time went. I remember when I got sober, the first couple of years, the first couple of months, I wanted to be 5 years sober, because those people seemed like they really had it all together. And then when I got 5 years, I wanted to be 10 years sober, because then my sponsor told me I could be an old timer. And now that I've been an old timer for a couple of decades, I don't really like that term. I don't know what I'd prefer, but I don't like being an old timer anymore. Just the whole idea is just not so good. So anyway, I got sober in Michigan, so long ago. Meetings were so different in Michigan. In Michigan, we would call this an open talk instead of a speaker meeting. So I got sober where it was open talks or closed meetings, and then of course closed meetings, speak for themselves. But a speaker meeting was something that, you heard at a retreat or a convention kind of thing. We always called them open talks, so I may refer to this as an open talk, and that's why. I should have actually legitimately stood when you asked for visitors, because I live in Camp Verde, which I guess makes me a visitor, and this is my first time at this meeting too. So anyway, to be brutally honest. I lived in Michigan till about 14 years ago, when my husband and I decided that we'd had enough of the gray skies and the snow and, the whole cloudiness. Michigan, of course, being surrounded by the Great Lakes, we get a lot of clouds and rain and misty, and it just went on and on for months at end. If you're native to Arizona, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you may not know what a snowblower is either. But yeah, that was like standard equipment in Michigan. And I got sober in a place called Rochester Hills, and what led to that event in my life was I had been married for the second time and was about to get divorced for the second time, and I thought that it would be really a good idea if I threatened suicide, because then my husband would come back to me. I had no intention of committing suicide, even though I'd been drunk or high for, a month by that time, nonstop. But because I didn't know how to load a gun, and that was what I had thought would be very dramatic, and would bring him back. But what he did instead of coming to rescue me was he called the cops. Yeah, so there I was, dead drunk with a rifle, which I had no idea how to load. I didn't even know if we had any bullets. Is that what? Yeah, I guess that's what. Yeah, see, clueless, just totally clueless. Laying on our bed, and in come the Auburn Hills police. And they don't take this very lightly at all. I mean, they were really serious that I was going to, where was this gun, et cetera, et cetera. So I got carted off to the emergency room of the hospital where my sister worked. It was a Sunday night. Yeah, I know, it was so embarrassing. It was a Sunday evening, so she wasn't working, and it was, of course, hot. It was July. It was the weekend after the 4th of July, and, people were still out partying about that. I was really a very isolated drunk. I did not want to share my alcohol or drugs with anybody, so I did it all at home. So I did not have a lot of friends that I drank with whatsoever. And so anyway, I ended up in the emergency room, and my sister appears, of course, trying to explain to her colleagues, what was she doing here with this drunken sister of hers. And my brother came also to the hospital that night, and because he agreed to stay with me the whole night, they didn't tie me to my bed, the restraints and everything, which I was very, very happy about, because that would have been really bad. I mean, it was bad enough as it was, but nevertheless, Kenny, my brother, stayed with me until the morning, when they found a bed for me in the local mental hospital, and I ended up there for 5 days. And on Thursday of that week, 4 people from AA came in and talked to the patients, and for the first time in my life, I paid attention. I was one of them. I didn't want to be one of them. It was the last thing in the world that I wanted to be, and I sure as heck didn't want to go to AA. Oh, my goodness. I should back up a little bit and mention that by the time I got sober in 1989, I had already achieved a master's degree in counseling. I worked with substance abusers. I sat with people in and out of hospitals. I'd worked in several hospitals. I had a private counseling practice for a little while. I did marriage counseling. I mean, I had it all together on the outside. I was educated. I had a job. I had several jobs. I had a car. I had a place to live. I mean, I just really didn't look like an alcoholic, like a person who couldn't get through the day without firing up a joint or having a drink first thing in the morning to go along with her cigarettes. I smoked chronically cigarettes too. I mean, it just couldn't be me. Oh, in fact, I taught classes in Michigan. If you're arrested for drunk driving and it's your first offense, this is years ago now, so I'm not sure how it is now, but you had to go to a class for drunk drivers called Alcohol Highway Safety, and I taught those classes for 15 years. I did, part-time. In courtrooms, this, that, and the other thing. I showed movies. Maybe some of you have heard of the Father Martin series. Oh, I loved Father Martin. He was just so, so funny. And I would show those movies, and I mean, I'd stand there and, preach about the dangers of drinking and driving when, in fact, I had, smoked a joint on the way to the class. I know. And let me tell you about amends, too. Yeah, that was one amends I never should have made. My poor boss, the district court director, about lost it when I told him, when I made that amends. Oh, he about lost it. Oh my God, Charlotte, you could have gotten us. It was really bad. So I did talk about it to my sponsor, though. So, I mean, I did do the right thing, but as it turned out, it was a very bad amends to make. So be very careful with stuff like that. That's all I can say. The other ones I made turned out fine. So anyway, I had done all this work. I was a professional. I was, working with substance abusers, all this stuff. And I remember sitting in those classes and thinking, if I ever got that bad, I would do something about it. Well, you know what? I got that bad, and I had to do something about it. I did go to one detox center in Ohio because I had this reputation to protect. I couldn't go in Michigan. My gosh, if any of my former students or clients or friends or relatives had ever seen me, the earth would cave in. So I did go to one detox center. This was after husband number 1 had divorced me, and husband number 2 I had confessed to him that I was using. He was my boss, by the way, in the substance abuse programs. Yeah, truth. You know, it's just ugly, is what it is. So he said to me very seriously, "Well, we have to get you some help." And I'm like, "No shit, it's time." So I did. I went to a 30-day treatment program in Ohio and came back. And my only goal at that treatment program was to be elected president of the unit, which I achieved. You know, the patients elected officers during the time that they were there, and I wanted to be president. And by golly, I made it in 2 weeks. I was president. It meant nothing, but it was my huge ego being fed. I had to have some title, some sense of worth as I was in that detox place. So I came back to Michigan after that stint in Ohio. And I went to an AA meeting on the east side of town. I lived on the north side, so I went on the east side, so no one would ever recognize me. And, in the hospital, they're really nice to you. You have inpatient, AA meetings, and people from the outside come in, and it was just really nice. Well, when I got out, you people were not nice to me at all. You did not acknowledge my presidency or my, worth on the outside. I went to exactly one AA meeting, and that was it. I don't need AA. I can stay sober by myself. So my second husband and I had a big fat fight, and we had a fully stocked liquor cabinet. Oh man, it was off to the races, and I stayed drunk for another 5 years. So, and then after he left, that husband number one, husband number two, sometimes I have to remember what I was doing by who I was married to. Yeah, that's not a good thing. I don't think that's how it was intended to be. But yeah, husband number one, husband number two, and eventually husband number three came around, and then so did husband number four. But I'll get to him later. So anyway. I got sober in July of 1989 and started to go to meetings. And, for the first time in my life, I went to a lot of meetings. July 9th was a Sunday that year. That was my last drink. I was in the mental hospital from Monday to Friday. They finally let me out. And Friday night, I went to my first meeting in a church in Rochester Hills and actually met the man I'm married to now at that meeting. So even though, I was barely sober, just barely sober for a week, not even a week at that time. And I found a group of people who were just all embracing, all caring, loving. And, I cried for 6 months at every table I sat at. I was just a mess. On the verge of getting divorced again. That was husband number two. Was out of a job, finally took a job that was 100 miles away from where I lived. So every day I would drive 100 miles there and 100 miles back. Didn't last long, about 6 months until I found another job closer to home. I was not a counselor at this time. I had pretty much given that up. I went back into the corporate training world, and that's where I kind of stayed for the rest of my career in business. And it was so hard to go home every night to an empty house. It was just so hard. And my sponsor would tell me, or people at the tables would tell me, read the big book. I wanted to. I desperately wanted to, and clearly I could read, but I could not concentrate for more than about 3 sentences, and then I had to put it down. It probably took me, I'm going to say, a good year to get through the first 164 pages of that book, just because I could not concentrate. I don't remember what I did with my time, but I know I was alone, very, very lonely, and then when I started to get involved in AA, when people started inviting me to things, dances and coffee and out for this and out for that and meeting up, then I had to get a bigger appointment book. There was so much to do in the program, so much. Retreats and weekend, whatever they called them, alkathons, all kinds of things. There was just so much to do, and I really started to love it. That's really a part of being a part of instead of being apart from the program, is getting involved. And in the group that I fell into, it was easy. We have had a Tuesday night meeting, 8 o'clock meetings. In Michigan, meetings generally started at 8 o'clock at night, which to me right now just seems really late. I'm in my pajamas by that time nowadays. But back then, get home from work, have dinner, clean up, go to the meeting, then sometimes go out afterwards or meet before. But anyway, at this Tuesday night meeting at 8 o'clock, there was a group of women who met for dinner at about 6. We celebrated everything. We celebrated birthdays. We celebrated this. We celebrated that. When it was your AA birthday, the gifts were heaped upon you, and everybody was just really happy, and we'd eat, and then we'd go to the meeting. Well, after years and years, we started to disperse. Some moved here, some moved there, literally Arizona, California, Florida, all around the United States. And to this day, we have a Zoom meeting. It'll be next Saturday. To this day, there's like a core group of us, 10 of us. One died last year. There were 11 of us, and we would have a chatting with the gals is what we called it. Every month we'd send an email with an update, and then when the pandemic hit, we just switched to Zoom, which is even more lovely, because now we can see each other. In fact, the very first Zoom meeting we had about 3 months ago, we all looked around at each other, and somebody said, none of you have changed a bit. These are women I've known for 31 years. Right, haven't changed a bit. Go ahead, lie to me, I don't mind. It was nice to hear that. And they look just so happy and comfortable in their lives. We've got all kinds of problems. Two women's husbands have died over the years, and it's just, we've got all kinds of stuff going on, but we're just really a tight group. It's a group of women that, I can tell anything to, and at any time of the day or night, I can call them, and they would be there for me, and vice versa, if they would call me any time of the day or night. It's just that companionable, so friendly and intimate with each other. We've just been through a lot together. Let's see if I've said anything I wrote down. Nope, not a thing. Nope, I haven't said one thing that I wrote down. Maybe I should tell you that what actually sparked my alcoholic drinking. In 1980, it was the same year I got my master's in counseling, I got pregnant. I was just desperate to have a child, really, really wanted a child. My first husband and I really had been trying for a long time, and I got pregnant. And about 19 weeks into the pregnancy, I miscarried. And I remember going home from the hospital, and up till that time, I was a recreational user. I could take it or leave it. We always had pot in the house because my ex-sister-in-law, his sister, was a really big pot user, and she always felt it her duty to leave us a bag, which was, we would smoke a joint on a Friday night after work, and then, eat everything in the house, and, watch TV and stay up late, how you do, and maybe wash it down with a couple of bottles of wine. But Saturday night or Saturday we were back to normal, and would just go back to doing whatever we were doing. But when I got home from the hospital after that miscarriage, I rolled the first joint I'd ever rolled. Before that, they had been rolled for me, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I sure, struggled through it, and by golly, that was it. That was it. I was off to the races. That pain and that depression and that disappointment were so intense, I just did not know how I would deal with it any other way. The only way that made sense to me was to be completely distanced from my feelings, because they were so intense. I just didn't think I'd ever stop crying. But, when you get loaded enough, you don't cry anymore, It's not exactly a good time, but at least it doesn't hurt so bad. So that was the precipitating factor in my using. I mean, I literally remember stepping over that line and going, what the heck, who cared? It was never, I was so bummed and so disappointed that I just didn't think I could stand it. So anyway, that's really what started it in 1980. And then that marriage ended, got married again, that marriage ended, and then I got sober for, knock on wood, for the last time. And I don't ever want to forget my last drunk. It was just too bad. Though I did, a good day for me at the time was a joint or two, pint of vodka or two, and some pain pills. That was when, substances were much, much more easily gotten. I mean, all you had to do was go to a doctor and say you had you had a pain anywhere, and you walked out with a prescription with multiple refills, or for muscle relaxers or anything. So I just always had my own little pharmacy in my purse or under the seat of my car. I can remember driving somewhere with my boss in the seat next to me and stepping on the brake and feeling the vodka bottle slipping out from underneath. No, back, I say. Yeah, you just don't want that to happen. You just don't want that to happen. So, and it was hard to work, I mean, I can remember a couple of times my colleagues looking at me quizzically going, "What is wrong with her?" And I was teaching classes at the time, too, so people would walk up to me and say, is that like a seed burn on your blouse? No, it wasn't. Lie like crazy. But anyway, that was, the things you do to protect your habit. It was more important to me than anything. I would get high in the morning. I would go out to lunch in my car and smoke a joint or drink, and I would go back to work, and then as soon as I got off work, I was drinking or drugging again, and of course all throughout the night, because like I said, I didn't want to share, so I pretty much stayed home. I didn't like drinking in bars. Again, being that teacher of drunk driving classes, my gosh, if I ever got arrested. Though I will tell you, the first year I got sober, I got 6 speeding tickets. Yeah, I was sober as I could be, and I got pulled over 6 times, 6 speeding tickets, and appeared in court in front of some of the judges that I used to teach for. I know, it was so embarrassing. I was stone cold sober. Oh, and I remember I went to a meeting after, I think, my 5th speeding ticket. It was a Friday night. I was coming home from that 100-mile away place that I was working. Got to the meeting just furious that I had gotten the speeding ticket, the 5th speeding ticket. And was sitting at a table, and I was, ranting and raving about this, and one guy, I'll never forget him, I still know him, Gene, looked at me from across the table and said, "So were you speeding?" Well, yeah. And what does that have to do with anything? I just thought that was a moment, light bulb went on. I have to be accountable. If I'm going to do it, then I'm going to have to pay for it. And, there you had it. If I hadn't known some of those judges, I would have lost my license in Michigan. I would have had excessive points. I would have lost my license. But they really went easy on me. And you know what? I did learn my lesson. I really did learn my lesson. I stopped speeding so obviously. And, I really tried to be good. It's hard to not speed. It is. It's a habit, I guess. So anyway, back to getting sober. It was, when I first came to meetings, I heard the steps, and I listened very carefully and thought, all this background, all this book learning I had, all this experience I had, it would be so easy to throw out a couple of those that, didn't really sound like I wanted to do them. That inventory thing and those amends. I mean, geez, oh Pete, that's a lot of humility that I wasn't quite ready to undertake. But as I listened to around the table and heard the stories of the people who didn't work the steps, or the people who went out and came back in, who relapsed repeatedly, that kind of stuff, it occurred to me that I had to play by these rules. And that's what I have striven to do these past 31 years, is everything that those steps say, certainly not perfect, but, do my best every day, progress, etc. In fact, when I heard Randy read the How It Works tonight, my favorite part of that is, what, in order? I can't go through with it. It's an exclamation of complete and total, shock and amazement, like, you expect me to do this? And the answer is, only if you want to stay sober. I mean, I truly believed that if I didn't work the steps, I would get exactly the pain that I brought in, would come right back to me. Work the steps. I might also mention that I was born and raised Catholic, and I have practiced that faith for all these years, and worried a little bit when I first came in as to whether or not the Catholic faith would line up with AA. And all I can say is that It amazingly does, and I'm very, very happy about that. And then could think, 10 commandments, 12 steps, how can you go wrong? There's something, one of those things will cover whatever situation I find myself in. And if I can't find my answer within the confines of the steps or the commandments, then by golly, somebody at the table will help me. It always happens. It always happens. Every time I've had a concern and taken it to a table, I've heard my answer. Someone's either been through it or they've been through such a similar situation that I can relate to it and I can get my answer what to do. I've never been sorry for doing nothing. When I have a rage going on in my head, the committee is having its big meeting and trying to decide what to do or who to take to task or who to get a resentment about. If I do nothing, if I just wait, I've never been sorry. I've never been sorry that I've kept to myself, I'm an alcoholic. I still have a reputation I want to maintain. And my sponsor told me a long time ago, if they don't have a need to know, you don't tell them. It's that simple. And I've practiced that too. I don't go blabbing it to any person that comes in. We own a print store in Cottonwood, and lots of customers. We do all the AA printing. We do all the AA printing for that intergroup over there, and we're happy to do it. And because then people from the program come in to the shop. They'll come in and they'll pick up their stuff and a monthly newsletter, that kind of thing. And it's just awesome to see them come in, to have that little bit of a little bit of a meeting every time they show up. So that's really nice. I don't know how I got off on that, but nevertheless. Nevertheless, we do. We're happy to do it. Some of the things that I've done over the years, I've been on retreats. I've had retreats. I've held them. I've hosted them. I started the Michigan AA Women's Conference that's now in its, I guess if they had it this year, it would have been its 16th year statewide. Coming home from the International Women's Conference in Buffalo, New York, in 2002, who in the world goes to Buffalo in February? But my good friend and I did, and on the way home, we were talking about it and said, a lot of women couldn't make it to Buffalo in February, so why wouldn't we start a statewide conference instead of an international one? And that's what we did. The following year, we started a statewide AA Women's Conference in Upper Michigan. And I'm happy to say, 5 years ago, we started one here in Arizona. So yes, it's an awesome event. We had it in Prescott for the first 3 years, and then we moved it to Tubac, and it'll be next July in Tubac again. So it's just women's meetings are different in that we share things about our sobriety, about our lives, that we might not normally share with women. And since I did wander into a men's group one time, that's the truth, I did. But I'm sure they didn't talk about what they usually talk about with me there. They let me stay. That was nice of them. That was nice of them. They let me stay. I didn't read the book carefully enough. So, we've had luncheons. What else have we done? I've sponsored women. When I left Michigan 14 years ago, I was sponsoring 14 women, and I've still maintained relationships with them to this day. They're all in good shape. They're all still sober, and we still talk once in a while, not like we used to. Certainly don't see each other like we used to. But I just, being of service, trying to help. I want to talk a little bit about my prayer practices over the years. They have evolved. There were times that I had a very rigorous regimen. There have been times when I pretty much ignored it completely. And most recently, I would have to say that during this year, I finally cleaned up my guest room in my house and turned it into a livable space. And once I did that, man, I got out all my old meditation books, well, a couple of them anyway, and have not missed a day now. I'm in that room every morning, somewhere between 5 and 7 a.m., and I've got a set routine of prayers that I do. And I have to say, I think my sanity has been preserved because of this crazy world we're living in right now, and also some of the events that have occurred in my life over the past couple of years. I just knew that if I didn't do something hanging on, I didn't feel like I was going to drink, but I really felt like I was going to be unfit spiritually, and I was pretty used to being fit spiritually. And I'll tell you what happened. We moved here in 2007 or 8, I never can remember. And in 2009, my husband, my last husband, was the current and last husband. That's what we called each other. He's been married 3 times too. I've been married 3 times. You know, the Catholic Church made us go to premarital counseling, and I think 3 times or 4 times or whatever. And on one of the occasions we were driving to the premarital counseling, he's like, I don't know why we have to do this. We're sober. We go to church. Why do we have to do this? I said, between the 2 of us, there are 6 ex-spouses out there. They could start a club. Don't you think that we need some help, before we do this? He never made, moaned about it again. But, I mean, seriously, that is something, we added up all the years we've been married one time. I think it was 50 plus, just not to each other. So I know that counts. We've been married 17 years now. This month we've been married 17 years, and it's a wonderful thing. Yes, it's a wonderful thing. But in 2009, Steve was diagnosed with throat cancer. Excuse me. I was living in Baltimore at the time. I had moved here, but I had been recruited to a really nice job in Baltimore where I could have stayed a year and then come back and worked online forever and always, an online university. So I came home, and he had surgery at the Mayo Clinic and was not able to eat afterwards. He's got a tube in his stomach that he eats through, a feeding tube. I just got a new supply of them this week. You'd think I'd know. So he has a feeding tube. He's had a feeding tube for 11 years now. Well, 2 years ago, in 2018, he experienced the same pain in his neck that he had in 2009 and was diagnosed again, squamous cell cancer under his tongue, and was operated. We sought the advice and counsel of 5 different otolaryngologists, oncologists, say that fast twice, and across the country to see if they could save his organs so that he would be able to speak. Well, that did not happen, so he is now not able to speak. So he can't eat and he can't speak. And he's laryngectomy, so he has a tube in his throat that he breathes through. So it was pretty sad. And again, like I said, that was 2 years ago right now that he was just coming home. He had the surgery in Michigan because in addition to the surgeries, he's also had 68 radiation treatments. Radiation is a terrible thing, just a terrible, terrible thing. And he has, constant repercussions or, symptoms as a result of all that radiation. So anyway, he came home about 2 years ago now because he had to stay in Michigan to get the radiation treatment. So that was a horrible summer. So anyway, but we made it through, and I'm learning sign language. In fact, does anybody know sign language? I love you. And thank you. And good night, good evening. A few things, not much, but I do know the alphabet. Anyway, so I'm learning sign language because Steve knew sign language, and he's very good at it, thank goodness, and I'm learning it. I have a wonderful tutor who Zoom meetings with me Monday through Friday and is teaching me sign language. So it's pretty cool. I don't know where all that will lead. I mean, I have a feeling that some kind of service will come out of that somewhere, somehow, some way. I don't know. But that is what really spawned my current regimen of prayer practice. I just really felt like I had to do something. It's very hard to live with someone who doesn't speak. It really is. But we have a system worked out, and we bought an RV this year. It's not like, and we own a business, so it's not like we're taking, a back seat to life. Our business is for sale, and when it does sell, we will probably go back to Michigan because our support system's a little stronger there, family is there, etc. So, but until it does, we are happy where we're at. And RVing our way around Arizona, wonderful state. We always wanted to live here, and we're so glad that we made it. So anyway, what I really wanted to say, too, was that when I agree to give an open talk, I always look for some inspiration. You know, what am I going to talk about? What will it all be? What will the framework of that talk be? And so in one of my meditation books the other morning, guess what? I found my theme. I'm going to read it to you. It's real short. Being honest. After we've been in the program for a while, we may not be as honest with ourselves as we were at first. It's not easy to stay vigilant, to keep taking our inventory and look for defects that may have cropped up. It helps to ask our higher power for insight so we can all see our defects. We need honesty to stay clean and sober. Am I staying honest with myself? I'll tell you, for someone who's been in the program, that just hit me right where it should. Am I being honest with myself? There's always work to be done. Always work to be done. And I'm just finding so much comfort and relief in that every morning, no matter what. Being there with my books and my prayers and my writing, just some kind of regimen that I'm sticking to. You know, for me, finding a higher power wasn't a very hard thing because, like I said, I was raised in a very strong faith and I maintained it over the years. And I know that it's very difficult for other people, and I really, really, really want to say keep at it. Keep at it. You know, if you're finding higher power elusive or something that you can't deal with or don't want to deal with, you know, just keep trying. Just keep trying. In my years of sobriety, I've tried a lot of different things, and some of them have stuck and some of them haven't, and who knows what this will morph into. I'm not holding myself to any standard. I just know that I have to be every day mindful of those steps and of this program and of you people. I mean, I've really got to be connected to you people. And of course, it's been really hard these last few months to do that. This is the first in-person AA meeting I've been to since, what, March? Because we've been Zooming, or we have a little Monday meeting. We had a tiny little group, 5 people, at the hospital near us in Camp Verde. And after not seeing those folks for probably about 6 weeks, I just called them all up and said, well, come to our house. So now they come to our house on Monday night at 6 o'clock, and we have our meeting there. And it's a lifesaver. It's just a lifesaver. I mean, you just have to see people in the flesh. I do, in order to really, you know, feel that connected. So we're a tight little group, and I appreciate that very much. And we Zoom with people back in Michigan and all over the country now that have, you know, moved around, and just very grateful, and was, you know, really grateful to be asked to do this. So I'll share my friend who is at her first AA meeting tonight, and I got Chinese food before we drove here, and I don't like fortune cookies, but I do like to read the fortunes. So I broke mine open, and it said, "The greatest quality is seeking to serve others." And with that, I will leave you. Thank you very much.
Great. Let's thank the speaker, Charlotte, once again. Another round of applause.